This story is really about Bayles and Dolly Ice. Just wanted to mention to everyone, I'm proud of this today. We're here representing them in this bridge. Bayles and Dolly Ice, I am a direct descendant of theirs. They were our great-great-grandparents. My brother Rich is back there in the orange shirt today, so I would say we're probably the closest living relatives of Bayles and Dolly Ice that's still left in Barrackville. Also on this story is going to begin in April of 1863. That was about 10 years after this bridge was built. Jones's Raiders were led by General William Jones. His nickname was Grumbles, and he was the commander of the 4th Brigade of Jeb Stuart's Cavalry Division in the Army of Northern Virginia, which headed toward the Pennsylvania line. The Civil War was in progress at this time, and they were burning all the bridges behind them. Ahead of the army came runners who stopped at the house of the Southern sympathizers, Bayles and Dolly Ice. Mrs. Ice's maiden name was Straight, and they were part of the Ice clan that had settled in Barrackville and vicinity. The runners asked the Ice family if they would feed the soldiers when General Jones's army arrived. The Ice family agreed if General Jones would not burn this bridge. The runners said they would take the message back to General Jones and that they would be coming through in about 3 days. The Ices then asked, "How are we going to know General Jones?" And they informed them, the runners told them that they have a soldier stand by the general's horse, and that they would know him by that soldier standing by his horse. In about 3 days, General Jones and his army arrived in Barrackville, and he agreed not to burn the bridge in return for the Ice family feeding his men. Thus, the Barrackville covered bridge was spared. Just across the road from the Ice home was a fenced field. That would be that field that we're looking at right over there. The men who could not get their horses close to the Ice home tied their horses to posts in that field. It is said those horses were so hungry that they ate the posts down to the ground. During the Army's stay at the Ice home, 3 of the men became ill and were left in the care of Mrs. Dolly Ice. The rest of the Army crossed this bridge and headed toward the Mason-Dixon line, which is right over outside of Blacksville. 2 of the ill men recovered and went on to join their units. The 3rd soldier, whose name was Luther Santemeyer, aged 22, died while at the Ice home and was buried in what is known as the Baptist Cemetery and Old Section. A stone was erected by the Southern sympathizers, and occasionally flowers are placed on the grave by the stone. Little is known about him other than probably he came from the state of Georgia. Anyone that would be interested, you can go right over here to the cemetery on the hill. My wife, Dolly Ice, was here. We went over there last night, found the stone, took a look at it, and it does say Luther Santemeyer, and said that he died in 1863, and it was put up in April at that time. It's in the lower part of the cemetery. You go on the lower road, walk out there to your left a little ways, and you can find that stone where he's buried. So this history is all true. The Ice home was a log home that is no longer standing but sat below the bridge. Where the storage buildings are now is where the Ice home stood. It was a 2-story home there at that time. Numerous people lived in that before it was torn down. I think it's really a travesty that they put the bridge in the National Historic Register in 1973, and they did not include that home in that, because that home was very important to the saving of the bridge, because it was our grandparents that saved that. Also, it says part of the foundation of the old grist mill can still be seen going across the creek down there below the home there. That was the reason that the ISIS did not want this bridge destroyed, because it was their only means of transportation to get to the other side of the creek and get down to the grist mill where they worked at. So they worked out a deal with General Jones. That's what happened in that instance right there. The Barrackville Covered Bridge was placed on the National Register of Historic Landmarks in March of 1973. My wife took a picture back here of Luther Santameyer's tombstone. Anybody would like to see that, just ask her and she'll show it to you before we leave here today. Thank you for coming, appreciate it, and hope you've learned something here this morning.